Hopefully you all saw the beautiful 94 Kawasaki KX250 I rebuilt the forks on just before Christmas. Well, I'd planned to get it running and sell it on. I bought it as a nice running bike and I didn't really think it needed anything doing to it. When I tried to get it going, it wouldn't start. After a bit of head scratching, I did a bit of investigations into why and discovered that the bottom of the piston skirt had snapped off on the exhaust side. Really bad. So this is the bike we're looking at today. We're going to run through the process of stripping the top end down, working out what happened, and then also what we now need to do to fix it. The first part of stripping it down, okay, first of all you need to remove the tank and the plastics. Then get a drain tub for the coolant. Remove the radiator cap to let air in while the coolant is draining, or it'll go everywhere. Now remove the drain bolt from the bottom of the water pump. The drain bolt should have an aluminium or copper washer on it. It's quite easy to identify. It will pour out quickly, so be ready with that drain tub. Once it's fully drained out, remove the drain bolt from the cylinder as well. This should also have an aluminium or copper washer on it. Again, when you remove this, the coolant will come out pretty quick, so make sure you've got a suitable container ready to catch it. Next, remove the carburettor by loosening the Jubilee clips and sliding the carb out. Sometimes I use a heat gun to make it a bit easier. Then there are two coolant hoses attached to the cylinder, both near the top, one's at the back and one's right on the head. Loosen the Jubilee clips and slide them off. Sometimes they can be a bit stuck, but just be careful not to damage them when you remove them. You might need to just prise them a little bit. Next, undo the head steady bolts, which should allow you to remove the head. I've got to confess something here. It's not good. I tried to remove the head and the cylinder without removing the radiators, but it didn't work. So the radiators need removing first, which means that this should be done now. This will make removing the head steady easier, and then the head will come off easier as well. The head steady bolt on this didn't want to come out, so I needed to tap it out with a drift and a hammer. I always use a brass drift as it's non-damaging to the bolt. Important that. Now you can undo and remove the cylinder head bolts. And once they're off, the head should lift off. If it won't come off without encouragement, which this one didn't, you will need to lightly tap around it with a rubber mallet. Don't use a metal hammer. Tap lightly, not hard. Just lightly all the way around. The head can now be removed. I guarantee it works. This gives us a look at the top of the piston. This one looks brand new. Very strange. Not what I'd expected. It's marked on the top that it's a B-size piston, which should be a bore size of 66.41mm. We'll remember that. The combustion chamber in the head also looks perfect. It looks like it's recently been cleaned, and there are remnants of copper grease on the head gasket. It shouldn't really be there, but sometimes people use it as assembly. So it looks as though, to me, this bike has just had a new top end rebuild. It's got a new piston, clean combustion chamber, and then the remnants of that grease. So why all the damage? Could be a few reasons really, but we'll soon find out. Okay, let's get the cylinder off and have a proper look. We'll need to remove the power valve cover from the bottom right hand side of the cylinder. The cylinder can come off without removing the actuator arm, but I'm going to take it off so it doesn't get damaged or in the way. I think it's just better. Just undo the nut that holds the arm on and then slide the arm off. You've got to kind of fiddle with it a little bit. Now undo the cylinder nuts. I find a spanner or a wrench is more suited to cylinder nuts like these, as big sockets can get in the way. Once undone, you can tap around the cylinder with your rubber mallet again. Lightly tap the exhaust and the inlet manifolds and all the way around the base. The cylinder should start to move. Just got to jiggle it a bit. You just need to work it backwards and forwards with your hands until it lifts up. Try to make sure the piston is at the bottom of the stroke before lifting, because if it's at the top, it can be difficult to pull off. This is the point that I realised the radiators needed to be taken off. Just saying. Oh, look at that piston. That is bad. It's badly scored on the intake side, and something's physically damaged it as well. That's a piece of something has got in there. So the top looks brand new, and the sides look absolutely mullered. There's also a bit of damage to the crankcase. We'll fix that up with a small grinder though, so that's not a major issue. The damage to the intake side looks as though something hard has got into it. Looks a bit like a circlip. This is the circlip. Now, the gap between the ends of the clip looked very large to me, but the clip doesn't look broken at all. Just a bit weird. Looking at the cylinder ports, they're all okay, thankfully. No scoring or damage to the ports at all. This is really good news. It can be really expensive to repair. But there is scoring on the barrel which matches the scoring on the piston. Let's measure the barrel and see where we are at. It's an iron liner in this barrel, and I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% certain, that it should be a Nickel coated bore, which would explain why it had a B piston in it, as they normally go up in really small increments like 0.01 mil. When we measure the bore, we measure it at the top in both directions, so front to back, side to side, then halfway down, the same, both directions, and then we measure it at the bottom, just to make sure that the bore's round and it's not different sizes up and down the barrel. So I measure this bore to be 66.88 mil. And all of the measurements were very, very similar indeed. The piston is for a bore size of 66.41 and the clearance should be 0.06 mil. So I reckon the piston was too small for the barrel. And as it's been running, it's been rocking backwards and forwards, and that's what smashed it. I also don't reckon they were new circlips and they've been stretched out. It's not caused this damage, but it's really not good and it's not worth scrimping on, guys. Okay, so we need to look for a new piston and we need to get the barrel rebored. So let's strip the cylinder down. First of all, we need to get the inlet manifold and the reeds off. When I've taken the reeds off, I've noticed that they aren't sealing properly, so they're going to need changing too. And now the power valve needs removing. First, take the covers off. The KIP system has two mechanisms. It has a flap at the top which closes, reducing the exhaust port height at low revs and opens at high revs. And it has two barrels on the sides which rotate, making the port narrower at low revs and wider at high revs. It's a really good system, but there are quite a few moving parts. First, we remove the top flap. We need to undo the bolt which attaches the power valve to the bar. Once that's undone, the bar slides out. It's quite easy. And then we need to remove the top power valve flap. That unbolts. Now, the rack that controls the top flap can be slid out from the top. Now a few bits need to be prepared before the rest of the power valve can be removed. First, there's two E-clips holding a little wheel at the end of the power valve arm. So we need to remove the wheel that the actuator arms that runs in. So remove the first clip, remove the wheel, then there's another E-clip behind it which also needs to be removed. That enables us to slide that rack out. Now on the bottom you can see there are 3 bushes, 2 circular ones and 1 crescent shape. You should be able to slide the crescent shaped bush out with its gear. The other 2 bushes might move slightly. Once this is removed, you should pull both of the other bushes partially out. They won't come all the way out. Now, the bottom rack that you remove the E-clips from should pull out of the left hand side of the cylinder. It should just slide all the way out. And then once that's done, you can remove the 2 bushes with the power valves, or side valves as we sometimes call them. Slightly fiddly, I know, and everything's got to be in the right place because of all the gearing. We're going to need to give all of this a really good clean up as it's full of unburnt oil and carbon deposits, but we'll do that in one of the later videos. It will all make sense when we put it back together. Now remember the bottom rack, the right hand side of the cylinder where we removed the E-clips from. There is a seal in there which also needs removing. It's really important to change all these seals. And last but not least, let's get all of the gasket scraped off all of the surfaces ready for the cylinder to go to be rebored. Again, another important job. Remember I said the bore measured 66.88mm? Well, I've got a nice new Wasner piston. Wasner are the best in my opinion, and it's suitable for a 67mm bore. So I'm going to take that off to get it rebored up to that size. We'll take that down to the guys that I use, and that should be ready early next week. So we should be ready to install it, by which time I will have done all of the rest of the bottom end, including rebuilding the crank, which will follow in future videos as well. So keep your eye out. Happy days. Sorry for the long video, but hopefully some of you find it useful. Partially to do with this particular model and partially just general 2-stroke builds. Thanks for watching. I'll be posting the other videos up as I do more of the work on the bike. Don't forget to subscribe or follow me to see the other videos and of course the finished build. As my missus says as well, you might just want to follow me to put you to sleep. Thanks, and I'll see you all soon.